Hi, my name is Peter Croucher. I'm Director of the Cancer Plasticity and Dormancy Program here at the Garvan Institute. So I've always been interested in science from a very early age. When I was at school, science was always the thing that excited me most. So I've always been interested in that ever since I was young and at school. So I started my interest in science when I was at school. I was interested in zoology, and I used to keep all sorts of animals and things like that in fish tanks around the house. And then I moved into studying zoology when I was at university. But then from university, when I was doing zoology, I moved to do a PhD, which was ultimately in a bone disease area, so studying the skeleton. And then from there, it became clear that there were many tumours that would grow in the skeleton, such as multiple myeloma or breast cancer or prostate cancer. And then I moved from working on the skeleton to understanding how cancers grew in the skeleton. That's a good question. So I've worked in cancer research now for probably the best part of 25 years. I first started working in cancer research when I was in Cambridge, worked on a cancer called multiple myeloma. And then since that time, I've moved from one institute to another. I've always worked on that particular disease. But over time, I've gradually taken on more cancers that we've started to become interested in, including breast cancer and prostate cancer as well. So my research is very much based as part of a team. Being part of the Cancer Plasticity and Dormancy Program brings together a number of labs, and we all work on a sort of common goal. And then beyond that, we collaborate with lots of groups, both across the Institute, but also across Australia and internationally as well. So in the current climate, it's very much team-based science, whether it's within my lab itself or more broadly across the Institute and then internationally as well. There's a lot of things I like. I very much like the fact that I can come in every day. Every day is different. I like the fact that we might be discovering new things every day, and I'm excited by that. And I get excited by the prospect that these things could have enormous impacts on individuals and society as a whole. I like the fact that I work with a diverse group of people, from students coming in that are excited about getting into science and doing PhDs, to individuals that are sort of very established in their fields and have enormous insight and wisdom to bring to problems. I like also the fact that we get to work with patients and consumers in our research and shaping the questions that we're trying to address. And at the other end, the sort of clinical team that helping develop and extend these treatments out into the community. So I write quite a few grants every year, probably something in the order of 10 to 12. They can take a range of time to develop. Some may take a few weeks. Others can take ultimately many years. These are ideas that we've considered or developed or been working on for sometimes decades, and they ultimately come together to develop, an individual grant. Some of those grants are very large and involve multiple partners, multiple labs, both in Garvan, across Australia, and even internationally. And those grants can take, a long time to put together, sometimes many, many months, if not years. So there's not a single answer to the question of how long it takes to write a grant. Often they've been evolved and developed over extended periods of time. Our success rates are reasonably good. As a lab, we probably get 30-40% of those if we have a good year. But it just depends on the size and the scale of them. Some of the bigger grants are much more challenging to get because they involve so many people. Some of the smaller runs are more straightforward to get. But ultimately, we have to write a lot of grants to fund the research that we do. I have a number of achievements that I'm sort of proud of. I guess one of the most striking is very early studies that we did were working on why particular cancers would grow in bone and cause devastating bone disease. And we did some of the very first studies identifying approaches to stopping that bone disease. And those approaches have transitioned into the clinic and are now the sort of global standard of care. So that's one achievement that, I am particularly proud of being part of, although it did involve a whole bunch of people. So in the next 5 years, I would like to think that the work that we're doing now at the moment is particularly exciting. It's trying to find individual cancer cells in the skeleton that sit in the skeleton and give rise to disease relapse. So these are really the seeds of disease relapse. And for many years, it's been incredibly difficult to find and isolate and study those cells and find them in patients. Well, we've made enormous progress in that over recent years, and we can now find them and we can study them. And that's opening up the prospects of new targeted treatments that could ultimately stop these cells getting woken up and causing new disease in the skeleton. And realizing the potential of that is hugely exciting. And I'd like to think in the next 5 years we can leverage those discoveries and see the outcome of that research and transition that into the clinic. So outside of cancer research, I guess my interests are, I do read a lot about science and that, but probably one of the things I like most is running. So when I get the opportunity, I often go running. And I've always done that since I was relatively young. Particularly in the UK, we used to do a lot of fell racing and fell running. I'm a bit older now, so my joints don't quite allow me to do so much, but I still like that, so yeah. On my bucket list, probably running marathons or ultra distance running is probably something that I'd still like to do more of. I quite like the idea of running the Sydney Marathon, given it's now changed its status to one of the best marathon races in the globe at the moment, so that will be quite good fun. I'd love to go on one of the shipbox rallies. That would be a great adventure, I'm sure. I know a little bit about that. I haven't really thought about doing it, but having spoken to James last year, it piqued my interest a bit, so who knows. I'm slightly intimidated by the fact that that could actually be made a reality now, so maybe I shouldn't have said that.